Josh, put your Richard Simmons thing back up there. Press
I
a
want
little
one.
Richard Simmons.
I want a Richard Simmons bobblehead.
Hi, it's Richard here. Let's put this baby to work.
Oh my!
Why wait another minute? You can do it. Lift it up and let it out.
Oh, he's the
So much
best.
fun.
Created by human.
Josh has a tiny little Richard Simmons bobblehead that has a little button that you press, and it says "Wonderful Richard Simmons sayings."
Now,
How do you think I make it through my
words.
Mondays?
That's
That's
how
it.
you do it.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's the
how
only
you
way to do it.
Josh.
I gotta have a little bit of the RS.
Yeah, baby.
RS. That's right. Little Richard Simmons. I did see something recently with him. I think it was a documentary or something talking about
yeah.
where he's been. Did you see
Dude.
that?
He's got like some handlers or something. It's weird. People when you're that famous and iconic, if you're not careful, the wrong people come around you and like
Mhm.
eat at your. They bleed you from 1,000 cuts. And so there's somebody controlling him. Basically, there's like
Well,
a handler.
Oh, possibly. And I think, too, the thing with Richard Simmons is he was so involved with just people. Like, he loved to be with people, talk with people, be in front of people, that I think when he decided, like, listen, it's a little bit much, I need to retire, he's become a recluse in his home because he can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's the double-edged
It's like
sword.
you've been
to
drained.
fame. I think fame it's relatively new. I think we've talked about this before, Todd, but it's relatively new. It's nothing. When you look at the grand scheme of fame, it didn't really begin until TV. The real everybody's seeking
People knew what
fame.
you look like.
Yeah, because
They
then
knew that's
yeah, and so you have like these weird things happen, like Elvis becomes a household name throughout, America, but also around certain parts of Europe and stuff, right? And then you get all this strange, like the machine just chews you up, right? It just chews you. You got all the people who want to continue the gravy train, right? They're like, Elvis is really big. We got to continue to push this guy. We got to give him pills. They didn't know that they were going to kill him, but because the doctor was feeding him uppers, right? And then they'd give him downers, and they're thinking, nothing's going to happen. This is all doctors approved. The medicine they give him.
He was the commodity.
He was a commodity to these people who were living on the gravy train. Even there's this documentary about Selena Gomez on Apple where she's talking about her, her mental health, But,
sure.
Man, you kind of get a sense the people around her are like gravy train, They really want this girl to do well because it just only helps them stay where they are, right next to the queen of pop or whatever.
Harry Styles has a new music video where he's like a giant sushi, and he looks like a merman, and like he's being prepped and all this, and at the end you're like, oh wait, he's gonna get eaten. Like, that's the idea. And
well, think about what just happened too. I mean, when you have somebody who comes into fame at such a young age that they haven't even developed. I mean, even Elvis, he was in his late teens, right? But even
you got Michael Jackson, right?
Well, Michael Jackson, he was super young. But when you think about that, it's so young, and all you have known is this kind of fame, it's got to mess with you, man. Look at what just happened. Aaron Carter, the brother of Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, dead.
And here's the thing: you have a bunch of little preteen starlet. They all have stars in their eyes, and they all want what Aaron Carter had, or they all want what Selena Gomez has, and then they don't realize the other side of it. Like you can't go anywhere without somebody yelling at you. Buh, 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 something stupid. Like imagine if you were the kid from Goonies who played Chunk, right? The truffle, whatever his little
shuffle.
He's an interesting story because there's a kid super famous when he was a kid, right? You think, oh, he could go on and do other movies. He's like, I am out. I'm done. And it's because I'm, without a doubt, a bunch of 30-year-old males, they see this kid and they go, what do? Hey, do the truffle shuffle, bruh. And that gets old, right? It may at first, maybe it's like, oh, cool, right? And then all of a sudden, day 3, day 5, day 100, people are still saying it to you. And you're just like, I just want a Big Mac, right? Or wherever you're at. I just want to shop at Walmart. Leave me alone. And I don't think the kids who are trying to be the little starlets today realize that, right? It's not all that it's cracked up to be. You end up insane. You end up, it looks cool. The grass is greener on the other side, right? We're all looking in going, oh, I wish I could be, Coldplay. Oh, I wish I could be Justin Bieber, whatever your band is. But really the other side of it, there's a whole lot of pressure. We don't even know. Yeah, it's weird.
Fame leads to drain.
Yeah.
Drains your life.
It really does. Like even the ones that seem to be doing okay. Let's look at like Kevin Hart, for example, right? He's got, he's a pretty funny guy. Everybody knows him. He's famous. But like there was something where I forget what he said, something in the 90s, right? Where his text came. Here he is sitting there with all of these people that work for him, probably like 50 people, and he's worrying about their livelihood now, because if he does something wrong, says something wrong, they're all out on the streets looking for the next job. And like, that's pressure enough. Right.
Oh,
but then you throw on all this other stuff where people come up to you and there's never ending barrage of paparazzi and questions and what's it like to be you? What's it like to be you day after day? And it just seems like it would be jarring.
Oh my gosh. And imagine this too. You go from, you can take it from a young age, you can take it from somebody, because Kevin Hart was definitely older when he, got famous and everything like that. But think about this is all of a sudden you are thrust into the limelight. You go from, you guys all know, we've done music before, we've done some acting before, we've done these things before, and it's so hard to get noticed. And all you want to do is get noticed. You want to be noticed for your craft, and you want to, get more jobs. You want things to happen. Well, with that becomes fame and popularity, so you want to get noticed so bad. And then finally it happens for some people like Kevin Hart. It happens. And then all of a sudden everybody notices you. Right. And you start getting attention that you haven't gotten before. And I don't care who you are. It's got to go to your head. Now, I think some people it goes to their head a little bit more than others, but it's got to. It would to me. It would, I think, to anybody. Everybody's telling you that you're.
Doubt.
Yeah,
it makes you weird.
Right.
It turns
Everyone's
you weird.
telling you that your shit doesn't stink. That you're incredible. That there's nothing you can do that's wrong or that will suck. Right. And then here's the thing, too, guys. Like for dudes, the attention from women.
Oh, see, that's where I'd be like, oh boy.
Oh my gosh. Obviously stepping out on your wife, cheating on your wife or your girlfriend, or all that kind of stuff. It's not good. None of it's good. But all of a sudden you're getting all this attention. And from, let's be real, from probably ladies that would have never given you the time of the day prior, right? Time of day prior to
without
what you
doubt.
are now.
Without a doubt.
So you go, oh my gosh, this woman is a 10 plus. I guess I have to. I can't let this. So all of a sudden,
who apparently handles it really well, supposedly, The Rock. Like, I guess he's just like, he'll have, people fawning after him all the time, but he's just always professional. He's just like, I get that.
Well, I think he's an anomaly though.
Right. I hope that that's the way it is, that he is the anomaly. Because I kind of respect somebody who can be in that and, that sea of people who just want to hold you and touch you and be in your life. Right. And you just go, well, yeah, that's my story, but I'm still just going to be this plain and humble person who just does my work and, does good with what I've got.
He can't go anywhere. He can't really hide.
No,
he can't really put on a disguise very well.
No.
Unless he dresses up like a gorilla or something.
He's a massive man. Like, yeah, you're right. He could put on a wig and sunglasses and a hat, and you'd go, I'm pretty sure that's The Rock.
Didn't even, I think, wasn't it Yeezy was talking about that guy? Kanye, didn't he have like some sort of mask where he looked like a white guy for a while? And people were like, that's Kanye. Like, but they had like a really nice, expensive prosthetic for him to put over his face. And
maybe, I don't know. I just saw something with Kanye where it was like a short video on social media, and it's him sitting down at some event, and he's got a hat on and a hoodie on, but he's got on fake teeth that kind of make his lips kind of buck out a little bit. And and the one lady's like, Kanye, and he's like, no,
dang it, that's what he's like.
No, Kanye, you're
Nothing
Kanye
works.
No.
I think the people who have it really well are like the bands like Guar or Korn or all these
Korn, not Korn.
Or
Korn,
they
but
wear,
you know what I mean? Like these bands where they kind of hide their faces and nobody really knows what they look like, and they have the like Kiss used to
man,
be.
Like,
Yeah,
there was always
that's the one I'm talking about. Sorry, Slipknot.
There was always this thing with Slipknot where you were like, who are these guys?
I have no idea who these people are.
And you always thought they were like other well-known musicians, right? Like, oh my gosh, is that Jonathan Davis from Korn?
Right.
Is that James Hetfield from Metallica? I don't know. It could be. Like, that's crazy.
I think that's where you need to be when you're famous. You need to be the guy who nobody could tell you, because you're in a suit or you're in some sort of dressed up thing, and then you can still have your craft, still do your thing, get off the stage at the end of the night, take off your mask, go home, and nobody could even tell, that you were that guy.
Do you think that it's also a headline type thing? Meaning this, that certain people that are famous, that always generate some type of headlines, whether it be good or bad, or just constantly in the headlines because of what they did, who they dated, or what they just did, or where they partied. I think those people are the ones that are always sought after and just are hounded, right?
Yeah.
But then you have celebrities, I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure who, but let's just say maybe Tom Hanks, right? That can kind of go out and people will say, oh my gosh, I think that's Tom Hanks. Hey, Tom, hey, what's up, guys? And that's it. He's not hounded, and the media's not, because he's not really, I don't know, I guess in a sense you say, well, he's not really newsworthy. He's not out there partying.
I hear you. I guarantee you, though, Tom Hanks, if he were out and about, if you just had like an hour with him where you went out public with him, he wouldn't be able to move 5 feet after a while, because people would all be like, that's Tom Hanks. He's over there. He's just signing. You know what I mean? And it would turn into a big crowd. I don't know. There is a weird thing happening in Hollywood too, though, where I have heard this, where somebody who may be like a B level famous person, right? They'll call ahead to LAX or something and say, hey, just so you know, our plane's landing at 12, and it's kind of like, oh, cool. All the paparazzi are being like given a heads up, So that's kind of an interesting side to it, where there is some of that where it's like, hey, just so you know, you got the managers telling the paparazzi when they're going to be there, and that's all planned. That's all rehearsed and planned because they want the notoriety. They want the So if you really want to do, you don't have to like let anybody know where you're going to be, but there is times where I've heard they do, and that's intentional.
But I'm wondering, like, should we kind of dive into this, since we've already got a lot of prequel stuff, and kind of go into maybe some celebrities who have died oddly, and there's rumors of mystery behind it.
Oh, sure. I could even give you a small list of a conspiracy going around right now of what is it? Audio Slave's lead singer. What was his name? Chris Cornell. The chef. Oh gosh, he was a real cool chef. He would go, what's his Andy?
Oh, Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain. Yeah.
The guy who was the lead singer of Linkin Park. What's his name?
Chester Bennington.
Yeah. And who else? There's a couple other names, but apparently they all had an in on the child. Oh gosh. Maybe it would be a sex trafficking, like they were all supposedly in on knowing who the big names were in sex trafficking, and they were going to come public with it. And now here we are talking about their demise, like they're suicides came out of nowhere, right? It's like, what? They were going to kill themselves? Really? And it would come down to somebody with immense power trying to shut them up and be like, oh, no, they committed suicide, But then if you go into oh gosh, what is it? When you're talking about the guy who has to look at the bodies, and they're doing the
mortician?
Yeah, but what's it called? When they're
autopsy?
Doing the task of autopsy. Thank you. When they're looking at the autopsies, they're going, oh, that's kind of odd. So there is something there. Of course, I don't have it right in front of me, but there is a definite conspiracy theory going around that they did know something about sex trafficking, which is interesting. But I digress. I don't know. It could all just be bunk.
Maybe
people who I'm trying to think who passed away recently.
There's like one of them. So if we're talking about celebrities and kind of riding that wave of fame unto an ultimate demise, right? And sometimes there's mystery behind the way they go. There's the case of Brittany Murphy.
Yeah, I don't know fully what happened there, but I know I think I've seen something about it or remember something. What happened?
Yeah, so Brittany Murphy, she was 32 years old when she was sick with pneumonia, to the point to where her lips were blue and she was gasping for air. When she collapsed in the bathroom of her 3-level Mediterranean home in the Hollywood Hills, firefighters attempted to resuscitate her before she was transported to the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. At 10:04 a.m., 2 hours after the initial 911 call, Murphy died at the hospital from cardiac arrest. But despite her being so sick, Murphy didn't go to the emergency room that night before and hadn't seen a doctor in 6 weeks. She and her husband, who had his own health issues, were proponents of their own form of holistic medicine, and also were weary of gaining a reputation in Hollywood as sickly. So I guess they were kind of sickly, but were worried about gaining some type of reputation and being sick? I don't know. So an autopsy determined that Murphy died of pneumonia, exacerbated by anemia and multiple drug intoxication. The drugs, over-the-counter cold medication, and prescription medications were all legal, but in elevated levels. Assistant LA coroner Ed Winter said she had been sick at least 2 weeks. If they had taken her to the doctor or hospital, it would have been treatable. So that's interesting. So she is sick. I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking here, because there's drugs in play, maybe she doesn't want to go to the hospital. She's saying that her and her husband are kind of fearful for being known as sickly people in Hollywood. Like, is that a reason to have pneumonia for 2 weeks and not go to the hospital?
Yeah. I mean, everything in Hollywood, I'm sure, has a, I think that's where the pressure is so much, right?
Well, you have to understand too. Everyone in Hollywood, especially with actors and stuff, they do have two faces,
right?
So, what are we looking at the PR side of what's going on? Are we looking at what really is going on? Because you really never know which side they're showing.
They're all a brand now. They're a product, unfortunately, and the brand is what's going on with the brand. And we don't want a brand that's sickly. Well, makes a lot of sense. The other guy I could think of who died recently that was kind of an odd one, right? Was Bob Saget. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he had, what was it? Like he died from a blunt or like some trauma to the head.
Bob Saget did?
Yeah. He died in his hotel room. He was going to go do a show, or he has a residency somewhere, and he dies. And all they can really say is that he had basically maybe fallen in the shower and then went to bed. I don't know. There's something going on where he gets his head hit, then goes to bed, and they're like, he died from that. And I'm like, what? That seems so weird.
But I want to say with his case too, wasn't there drugs involved as well? Like they found illegal drugs in his system?
I don't think so. Not really.
No?
I'm sure he has had a few legal drugs in his life, but I don't, and maybe he had some sort of dependency. But I feel like his death was very, very, it was just odd. It sat with me, at least, as like a, what? Really? Like he had some sort of, maybe, can you imagine, like, supposedly, if you got up real quick, right? And you forgot that maybe you'd opened up a cupboard or something. And you know how you crack your head into a cupboard? You're like, oh gosh, this kills, right? In some cases, this is what I basically get from it, that he hit his head that hard, went to bed, and then died in the middle of his, like died in his sleep.
Well,
that's all they can say.
It's saying here,
I don't know, maybe there was some drugs, but I doubt it. I don't think there was.
Well, he was at the Ritz-Carlton when this happened on tour. And it says here that during the autopsy, they found that he had fractured the base of his skull and there was evidence of bleeding around the brain.
How do you fracture the base of your skull, though? That's really weird.
I don't know. I mean, let's think about it. If he was in the shower and
slips,
goes back
he
on his
didn't think much about it. He's like, he goes to bed and he dies.
Oh, shoot, man. And so he goes and lays down and doesn't wake up.
I know, that's a weird one, though, because it's like, really? That just seems so weird. But who knows? Maybe he was in on Pizzagate as well or something.
So this is interesting. It does say here that because the skin on the back of Saget's head was still intact, the doctor ruled that the injury would have been most likely caused by something hard covered by something soft, or such as a carpeted floor. I guess if he would have fell in the shower, that would have removed skin?
Yeah, probably.
I don't know.
Anyway, it's just bizarre. That's all. It's a strange one. I don't know if it has anything to do with it.
Well, they concluded by saying that most likely he had most likely injured himself in his hotel room in Orlando.
Yeah. And guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it, I want to say it was like 2016 where like there must have been a spirit going out against everybody who was famous, because there was like a year there where we were like, another famous person died, wasn't it like they were dropping off one year? Do you guys know what I'm talking about, or am I crazy?
Oh yeah,
I swear there was a year
you're right.
It was like, oh, they died? That guy died too? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, check it out.
They just kept going and going.
Yeah, so check it out. In 2016, you had Muhammad Ali. I was just
about to say that. 2016. I believe that was the year.
That's what the year was.
Wow.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali, Prince, Patty Duke, Gene Wilder, David Bowie, Nancy Reagan, Arnold Palmer. Wow, there were a lot of deaths. Alan Thicke, Zsa Zsa Gabor, George Michael.
Oh, yeah. No.
Carrie Fisher.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh.
It just kept going. It was like the year of stardom.
Those that I just read were December.
Right? And it was just like, man.
All right. So let's go into November. Let's see here. You got Janet Reno. And these are all people that I'm familiar with. There's a ton of names on here.
But there were a lot of household names, I remember, that people
were. Florence Henderson.
Man, what is going on this year?
Yeah, Mrs. Brady died. All right, let's go to October. I don't know. A lot of people, man.
It's funny. I mean, it's sad, but like, yeah.
Yeah, it's not funny.
Yeah. Do you know who was also kind of a big surprise for me? I think it was a couple of years earlier, was Robin Williams.
Oh, that was a huge surprise. Yeah.
And you kind of, man, I wish we could dig into that. Like, what? I know his was probably, it was suicide, but
yeah.
You know what? I think that's the real, the hot topic is, even though you've made it, even though there's success, everybody knows your name. Everybody can see your name in lights. There's something, there's a disc where everybody knows your name. But there's just something that is ultimately, and maybe it's a personality type or whatever. I would say that a lot of people in the industry have a bipolar disorder at some point, or in some way, shape, or form. There's some sort of thing going on where they're just not happy, and it's because maybe that's just the human condition, right? Where we're trying to fill something. And we're thinking it's going to be this, it's going to be this, it's going to be this next thing, it's going to be this next movie. And when the next movie comes out and you're still just you, right? You're still just sad. I feel like there's a lot of people that I even have met or known in the industry where you're just like, why is this guy so depressed? Like he's doing what I would love to do. Think about it this way, right?
Tim, if you're always trying to achieve that ultimate goal, right?
Yeah.
And you're getting some dissatisfaction because you have not yet achieved that goal. The pursuit of that goal, I think, keeps you going. Even though you might be sad and depressed, that pursuit keeps you going.
Yeah.
So what happens when you've achieved everything? The money, the fame,
the sex, the drugs,
the sex, the drugs, you've done it all. You've traveled the world, everything has happened, and you're still not happy. Well,
right.
What's the next step? Right?
Yeah.
Like, well, what else
and now we add in the fact that now people know who you are too. Again, the public.
You have a much more publicized fall.
Oh gosh, yeah. And
well, not to mention them coming up to you always, and you're just like, I don't feel like talking to anybody.
Well, imagine that too. Imagine you're Robin Williams, and you've always been known to be this hilarious guy. And yeah, he did some more dramatic roles later in his career, which were fantastic. But he was a comedian. So
do something funny, Robin.
Right. Exactly.
Tell me a joke.
Do something funny.
Hey man, say a joke, man. Tell me a joke.
Which you've already set somebody up who is funny to fail at that moment. When you're asking him to do something funny right there. It's like,
absolutely.
Oh, well, that's going to work.
And he's probably literally just sitting there trying to have a coffee, trying to just decompress. And
probably putting his life back together at some point too. His second wife and his kids and all the stress.
There's no way to like, think about it. You're sitting there, you got your coffee on the table, you grab the coffee, you bring it up to your mouth, you take a sip, and as you take a sip, you kind of look up and you just look across the room just to look, like all of us do. And there's always someone staring at you.
Right?
Always. You're never left alone. You're always on display.
You're the product.
You're the product, man, and you always have to be on. And I'm telling you, man,
you can't. Your P's and Q's better be just right because you're going to lose that audience. You're always going to lose your audience.
I would go as far to say that the ones who probably deal with it the best are the ones that have the largest ego.
Yeah,
think about that.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah.
Right,
they're comfortable in that environment. That environment.
They want to be looked at. Yes, it is about me. Everything is about me. So those who don't have that large of an ego probably suffer from fame a lot more.
Or I would almost say maybe it's an internal external thing because I'm very external. So like my venting, my coping mechanisms are always very external. I put it in stuff. I do something. I build something. I make something. That's how I vent. That's how I cope. Some people are so internal, so they draw it all in, and they draw it all in.
That Josh, let's say you were uber famous, and you're sitting out, and you go to the Mellow Mushroom because you love their pizza. It's delicious, and you're sitting there by yourself, before you go somewhere, and you look up, and half the room's looking at you and whispering under their breath, and
is that Josh?
Yeah, and you're an extrovert.
Is that Josh from Created by Human?
Right. And you're an extrovert. And so you're sitting there and you're like, oh, this isn't bad. Okay. So what do? They come over to the table and you're cool, right?
Yeah. You have a script,
You have a script, right?
But this is the thousandth time this has happened.
That's what I'm saying. Now it's, this isn't new. Like I think new, you're excited. Wow, I'm being noticed. Like this is amazing. I think 5 years in, 10 years in, you just, man, guys,
I'm done.
I just want to be left alone. So there's this one time.
And this is not including everything that goes on online.
Oh no.
And what's said about you.
Yeah, that's not, which I think there's a whole other side. And real quick on that, there's an era where it wasn't there and now it is. And so you got all these old cats like, like Jack Nicholson or you can
go back to a Tom Hanks,
De Niro, Robin Williams, who didn't have to deal with that online element, and now they're like, oh my gosh.
I would imagine those guys probably ignore it better.
Sure,
than some of the younger celebrities.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care. They're like whatever. But what's interesting is there was this one time I used to live in Philadelphia, and we had gone to Philadelphia Phillies baseball game, and we had some great seats. At one point, I kind of just looking around, and I look behind me, and about 3 rows behind me is Charles Barkley sitting in the stands watching the game. Now, at this point, no one's really noticed that Charles Barkley is literally right there in the stands. So I turned to my dad and I said, Dad, that's Charles Barkley, right? He looks back and he goes, yeah, that's Charles Barkley. I said, I'm going to go talk to him. He goes, go for it. So I get up, walk up a few rows. Hey, Charles, how's it going, man? Good. Hey, listen, let's not make a trend out of this. Like, don't make a big deal. I don't want people to kind of know that I'm here. I said, no, I get it. I just wanted to come up and say hi. Nice to meet you. But that was his response to me, like immediately. It wasn't like, oh, hey, buddy, how's it going? And I was, at the time, I think I was like maybe 15, right? It wasn't any of that. It was, leave me alone, basically, in a nice way. He was nice about it. But basically it was, hey, I'm just here to watch this game. The second I walked away from him, I must have started something because everyone started coming around him.
And
right?
Don't you think he knew that?
He knew
that. He knew. It's like,
he knew
shoot.
Exactly.
Now I gotta leave.
So think about this, though, from both of our perspective, my perspective. I'm so excited that a superstar athlete, at the time he was in his prime, he played for the 76ers. So he was right there. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to meet this guy. That's all I'm thinking. I don't want to hound him. I don't even want to autograph or a picture. I just wanted to go, hey, Charles, nice to meet you. He immediately knew what was going to happen.
He knows the rules. He knows
what the rules of engagement. That shit. This kid just dined me out.
He even said, we don't want to make much of this. Yeah.
Let's not make a big deal out of this, buddy. Why don't you go sit your ass back down?
Shoot, mayday.
So, yeah, I mean, I get it, dude. But it's so tough because as a fan of these people, you want to just meet them. And I know some people get a little crazy, hounding them and want autographs and everything like that. And I personally have never been that way. I've always just wanted to say hi. I appreciate what you do. And, that's it. That's all. But even that, I can get from their perspective how at some point that can't be fun anymore. Like we talked about, Josh.
Without a doubt.
Josh, you're a new famous celebrity. You're sitting down at Mellow Mushroom and somebody comes up to you and it is exciting. It is exciting because you're being recognized for a talent that you have and you're finally being recognized for it. And it's exciting and you're happy and you want to engage and you want to, talk with these people and spend all the time and sign all the autographs. But at some point, it's just not manageable anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and they're also, your talent, kind of like Tim said earlier, your talent becomes a commodity where it's like I'm acting. And so they come to me and they expect me to be the same character that they see on TV. And it's like, that's not me normally.
Right.
And I don't want to disappoint these people. And they'll be like, oh, he's kind of standoffish. You're like, no, I'm just being a normal person. I'm trying to eat my pizza.
Oh, I'll do one more there, Josh. On the flip side of that, you've got the guys who were, let's say, the bad guy, right? The Game of Thrones. I'll give you an example. One of the actors was the guy who flayed people, right? I don't know his name, but imagine being that guy where your character was just written to be a jerk.
Well, was it Joffrey in Game of Thrones? He received death threats, didn't he?
I mean,
like online, stuff like that.
You gotta separate the art from the person. I mean, thank them for being amazing at you wanting to hate them, but don't.
Well, also they're doing it for fun, so people are making money off of your voice, off of who you are. I mean, it becomes a whole
there with his mom
thing
on set.
Because I do know Robin Williams there's a huge, you will research this. There's a big thing with him and Disney because when he did the Genie, his contract was only for the movie. And they said, hey, he's like, I don't want my voice to be used for anything else. I don't want it to be like on like little action figures and stuff like that. And of course Disney did, and they continued on with like 2 other movies and whatever. And I think they used other voices but anyway, but Robin Williams, I mean, he flat out he completely broke from Disney for years. And it wasn't until the board of directors, the director left, that he actually came back and he accepted the apology that Disney had for years. There was a thing like that. It was because they were using his voice and using his aura for products. And that was like, dude, that's not what I signed up for. I signed up to do a character once and for all, and that was it. And it all of a sudden his voice and everything started becoming a commodity. Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had a huge feud with Disney for years.
A lot of people do. I feel like it's kind of weird.
Well, Disney's huge.
Disney has ruffled some feathers for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Disney goes at it about it's our way or the highway.
I mean,
right?
We're Disney.
We're Disney. I mean,
we're Disney. We're going to get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. What are you going to do?
It's interesting. I think the other part too is just like the whole. It's funny how we started this. We started with the workout guy. What's his name?
Richard Simmons.
Richard
Simmons.
The Me Too thing really came through and opened at least some eyes. It took down some big pillars, right? And now I feel like today, this day and age, we're seeing a little bit more. I don't know. What is it? It's almost like the truth has been revealed in what it really is like to be somebody in Hollywood who has power. And I don't know. I feel like the news story has changed from one narrative to more of a now look the nasty stuff that's, I guess it's always been there. I don't know. I just feel like it's a slightly different with the internet and the age that we're in. Whereas before the wool was completely pulled over our eyes. All we had was Entertainment Tonight, and Late Night with David Letterman, and to kind of make us go, oh, that's what that person's like. But now you've got this whole internet social media side where, people do some stupid things and say some stupid stuff. And so we're getting the human aspect of it back. Whereas they're not so much gods, kings, or queens. They're normal people that have, bad days. But yeah, there's still this weird Americanized idol that we throw them on, the pedestal, and it's just funny. It's an interesting mix.
I kind of miss the pedestal days, right? Like,
well, that's interesting.
It is. I mean, I do, because I always loved it with a band, right? One of my most favorite bands of all time is Tool, right? So like I love the band Tool. The thing I always loved about Tool was the mystery of the band. Who are these guys? Mm-hmm. Why do they sing about what they sing about? Why does the music sound the way it sounds? Like, what's their story? But what I loved was the question of what's their story. I didn't really want their story, because in the question, I got to make up what the story was in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that could always change. And that was fascinating. And that was fun. And it was the same thing too. Like, we would live vicariously through these actors and these musicians and these celebrities, and
these caricatures
of them. And we could make them to be whoever we wanted them to be. Now, I can understand how that can be problematic when you have like stalkers and all this weird stuff, because some people go, that's my wife. Scarlett Johansson is my wife.
Yeah.
No, she's not, dude. Well, she doesn't know it yet, bro. But I need to show her.
Right.
Oh,
or
gosh,
or in John Lennon's case, right? He had a stalker, and nobody. I think it comes down to if I can't have her, nobody. If I can't have him, her, nobody can, and I'm going to make sure of it. Yeah. Go in and kill him.
But yeah, so now today, their lives, these celebrity lives, these actors and musicians are all over the internet and all over social media. And I guess you could say at some point it's interesting, because now we kind of get to peek into their day-to-day lives, how they interact with their wives and husbands, how they interact with their children, and what they're doing today, and where did they go eat. And wow, that's interesting. I personally don't really care for that. Like, I love the mystery behind who these people are. I love a character.
You almost don't want to, like they say, you don't want to meet your idol.
Yeah, don't want to meet your heroes.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
It's never good to meet your heroes. And back to Richard Simmons. think about this. This guy is really a legend. He's legendary.
Oh, absolutely.
There's especially the 80s. So again, going back to Fame and its youthfulness, right? It was in its teenage years, maybe late 20. I'm talking about Fame. Fame wasn't that old, right? The 50s that comes along, and in the grand scheme of things, then we get into the 80s where TV's really made a big ramp up in experimenting with programming, right? And we run into people like Madonna and people like Weird Al Yankovic and people like Trump, people like Richard Simmons. These guys are icons. They're legends to this day. I don't care. They're still legends. Even like a Bill Cosby. I know he has, right? He's had his whole thing, but they're still in our minds, these legendary, massive names that were all household names, Michael Jackson. And I mean, gosh, but they're also frail now. They're going down the path of life. They're like in this new era where the hero of them is gone, and they're trying to figure out how to make themselves look youthful again and relevant.
Oh yeah.
Nobody's approaching them anymore like they used to in the 80s. The lights aren't flashing like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
And now you got to go on some reality TV show to be relevant anymore and
wrestle a woman in mud just to,
And
hey, what's this gig pay? Hey man, what's this gig pay to wrestle this girl in mud? 25,000? Okay, I'll do it.
I'll do it, and I'll sweat to the oldies.
I'll sweat the shit out of that.
I do think Richard Simmons is one of those guys, though, where he really was a nice guy and is a nice guy. And he just kind of like, maybe I've thought of this. Okay. If like I were to become famous, and it's like, what if I did run into about 1,000 people, that just wanted to attack me I think I'd ultimately just kind of give in and let them do their thing until they're all gone. And then I'd be a waste of a human, but I'd be through it. And, and I think that's kind of him, right? He just like rode the crowd surfing thing and met a few people that he shouldn't have let into his circle, but he did. And I don't know. It's
even with Richard Simmons, I mean, his thing was, I think a lot of celebrities can meet another person, a fan, and not have any kind of connection, really, whatever. It's, oh gosh, nice to meet you. And it's just shaking hands and kissing babies and, okay, all right, guys.
I'm out. Bye.
I'm out. Bye. Richard Simmons, I think, was slightly different. Like he
was
wore
a helpful
his heart on his sleeve. Like he really would listen and cared about what somebody was saying. So, when a fan would come up to him and say, "Oh my gosh, you've changed my life," or whatever.
Yeah.
If you could just meet my daughter, he would be like, "Let's go. Let's
go
meet
that's
your daughter."
Exactly. You're hitting it right on the head.
Which is cool.
Like a Fred Rogers.
But you can only do so much of that, man. Like Fred Rogers,
I
like
know.
you said.
He would get stopped like in New York, and he was known for like he would stop the production just to talk to a kid. They were so annoyed with him because he would just hone into that one kid.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was legit, like that guy.
Well, and that's what I was going to say.
He can hide a little bit better too. He could he could definitely hide his face. He was a little bit more average looking. He wasn't so grand.
Yeah.
The one thing about him
he's still a legend, though.
Well,
he's huge.
Everybody knows Mr. Rogers. Like,
oh, absolutely,
he's legend.
Well, that's one of the things I was going to mention, though, too, is like when you have a celebrity that you idolize and that you've grown up with, and you've created this image, maybe true, may not be true, but you've created who this entity is in your mind, and then all of a sudden one day you hear, "Oh, they used to fool around with little boys."
Right.
What?
This happened in England. There was a guy, kind of like a Pee Wee Herman-y kind of guy who hung out with kids, and then he passed away. And his lineage came out, his skeletons came out, and it's just like everybody had two deaths. He died, and then the news came out that he was a total pedophile, and it's like,
it crushed.
They had statues about him. They loved this guy.
Them. I know.
It crushed them.
Yeah. For one, like when you start talking about Mr. Rogers and Fred Rogers, like, gosh, I hope nothing ever comes out about.
I don't think it will. I think he was legit.
I think he was
legit.
I think he truly was. But I mean, even the thing with like Michael Jackson, I was a massive Michael Jackson fan as a kid.
And
that carried over into adulthood, man. Like I loved Michael Jackson, no matter how weird he was, but I always wrote it off like, dude, I mean, imagine being a young boy thrust into international stardom, and you have that your entire life.
He was a social experiment, for heaven's sakes.
Was.
He really was the
was
first
like
guy. But I would say he was even weirder. So Elvis, he started, remember, like we were talking about earlier, he started younger. He was in Jackson 5, and that was when he was 8. Becomes this international star.
He was younger than that, man.
Right? He was so young. And then he's just thrust into the limelight, and not just America, not just London, the whole world, literally India, China. You go anywhere and you bring up Michael Jackson, somebody goes, I know who that is.
Yeah, so Michael Jackson, exactly. So Michael Jackson was 6 years old in 1964 when he had his debut with the Jackson 5.
Yeah. And
6
what a
years
debut.
old, dude.
What a debut, too, because they killed it. They had, they were chart-topping. That Jackson 5 album, ABC 1, 2, 3, great songs on it.
Oh my gosh,
great
dude!
stuff.
Ben, the two of us, we no more.
But then he gets into and again, the 80s is such a weird time because it's kind of almost it's TV programming learning what its power is. It's the growth of fame and what this really means. Like what do you mean I can go into any store I want and they're just going to give me stuff because I am who I am. This has never really happened. I mean, think about it. In the 50s we had Elvis, sure, but then really entertainment was like, gather around the piano, Uncle Tim's going to play some songs, right? And then he's going to go back to college and maybe we're hoping he'll star in a movie someday or something, but even still, like, right? It was so different. And then you just get this stardom in the 80s and 70s, 80s, where we're just experimenting with these people's lives. I mean, it's really like, in a way, the Truman Show, but he knows he's on the Truman Show. Everybody knows who you are. There's this expectation about it. And there's like old clips. I remember when he passed away a few years back, right? And they're playing all these old clips. And I remember seeing an old clip of him running through the crowd. Yeah, Michael Jackson running through the crowd in like Italy, let's say, I don't know, some country, and it looked like World War Z zombies chasing after him, and he's hopping over cars. Michael Jackson, and he's hopping over cars. Stop it! Cut it out! Benz, Mercedes. Okay, but that nobody gets treated like that.
No.
But what were they going to do if they caught up to him? Tear him apart, limb from limb? I mean, I got his arm, you got his feet.
Oh, it would have been. It's a mob. I mean, there is danger to. I mean, we hear about this all the time, like Britney Spears and
the mob
paparazzi is just. It is. I mean, it's dangerous. It's
dangerous
because you want a memento. You want a memento, right? Like you want a piece of his hair. You want a piece of his clothes. You want something of them. And you don't, even fans, I think at that point where there's hysteria and mania, don't see them as a person.
They don't.
At all.
Yeah, they're just this icon, this product.
And you feel, and that's the other thing too, is you feel like you know them, but you only know this portrayal of them, right? Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like you don't really know them as humans. And I think that's okay until it starts getting insane, right? Everyone's pulling at you and oh gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just crazy.
It's all created by human.
Yeah, that's right.
It is, Josh.
Well, that's it. But you know what it is too? It's the name drop that we all get to do, right? Oh, well, I saw, Michael Jackson.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. The brag, right?
It's kind of the one up, right? Like, oh my gosh. You know who I hung out with? I hung out with this guy. Oh, yeah, cool, yeah. I hung out with the lead singer of whoever, right?
Right.
With the lead singer of Everclear. Is it Everclear?
Oh, wow, you did?
Remember?
Wow,
yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, I hung out with the lead singer of Everclear. And then you're like, oh, that's cool. I hung out with the lead singer of Maroon 5. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I hung out with Michael Jackson.
Yeah. And we're one-upping each other, and all the people, all the peasants. We're the peasants. Like, oh well, I got to touch the hem of his jacket.
Right. And what's so great about all of it is none of it means anything.
Cares?
Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah, no.
Who cares? And here's the truth of it, right? I know there are some big names that we consider legend, right? But in about 100 years, nobody will be alive, right? And the names will just kind of
Tim, kind of what you talked about, though. You talked about this social experiment, and we're still in it because 100 years ago from now, in 1922, there were not all this stuff didn't exist. Video and audio and pictures and all this stuff and all this social media, none of this stuff existed. So when you heard story of, I don't know, let's say,
an inventor.
I mean, even that Machine Gun Kelly, not Machine Gun Kelly. Who am I thinking of?
Sure.
What's an old robber?
Oh, right. You could say
Bonnie
and Clyde's.
Bonnie and Clyde. Okay, great. Yeah. So you could say Bonnie and Clyde, right? When you think about those things, there is like a picture, maybe two pictures of Bonnie and Clyde. Mm-hmm. So all there is around it is legend, and legend grows over 100 years. So it's a fascinating story that you can't verify really. There's some parts you can, some parts you can't. It's all story, and that's cool. It's going to be different. We're still in the social experiment because you said 100 years from now, there's going to be all this information. Now, again, like you said, maybe there's so much information, who gives a shit because it's just in the midst of everything else, right?
Right.
So who cares?
The pendulum swings back to what it should be, where it's like, didn't Warhol say that we'd all be famous in the future? All have our 15 minutes of fame.
He was right there.
And he is. I don't even think we've seen the full blooming of that quote yet.
I think we've seen a lot. I'm with you.
We're seeing it.
Yeah, we're seeing it for sure, because you create a cool TikTok video and you get 10 million views. Yeah. Oh my gosh, aren't you that TikTok guy?
Right. Well,
right.
I feel like that's kind of, what did somebody say? Oh, there's a story recently of a young gal who had, I don't know, 2 million followers on her Instagram account. And she thought, I'm going to go to, Comic-Con, let's say, and I'm going to set my booth up. And she had her booth roped off and nobody showed.
Oh my gosh.
It was all smoke and mirrors.
This is so sad.
It was all smoke and mirrors. It wasn't really, and there's a lot of people who came out and they're like, yeah, when you're in the era that we're in with the TikToks and the viral videos, I don't think people care like we think they do. Like, no, yeah, sure. There's going to be some guys like Mr. Beast or something where if you saw him, you'd be like, I think that's Mr. Beast, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you want to go meet him, but he's also becoming more and more famous where he's, he's been at it so long where he just continues to put out this content that just, people want to watch on YouTube. And he's been at it for so long that, but even still, I think a lot of his stuff is smoke and mirrors. It's not quite like if he were a Brad Pitt or on the social sides.
I have a problem too. A lot of times when I meet celebrities or I see a celebrity, I don't realize they're a celebrity until somebody points it out to me. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like I'll see somebody and I'll go, oh, no, there's no way that could be. And we live in Atlanta too.
Maybe that's what
he does that when he comes into work and looks at me too, Tim.
I do. Right. I'm like, I don't.
Who's that again? Oh, Josh.
Yeah, I work with Josh.
Oh no, I work. Josh. I do stuff with Josh.
That's great, Josh. That's great.
Yeah.
I think you're getting old. Man. You're getting old, Todd.
I don't remember anything anymore. What are we doing?
Right. I know.
We're talking about sushi.
Oh, I love sushi, man.
Sushi?
Yeah.
Oh, you were talking about sushi. Sushi. One of my, so I lived in Chicago, went to college, that was right downtown. It was called Moody. And one of our assignments is that we had to go and, talk to somebody from a different faith. Let's put that in quotes. And so I had to go I had to do a paper on, I wanted to do it on the Catholic church. And so I talked with a priest, which it was not in my upbringing. We didn't have priests to a point where we have a pastor. We don't go to a priest, right? In the
you don't confess
faith. This is all going to be cut. But anyway, the guy who I met was I've sat there with him, and we were eating lunch, and I'm just writing down some stuff about the faith that he's in and how he started being a priest, because these are the guys that have to be celibate and everything. And it turns out, like halfway through the meal, we're sitting there chatting, and he's like, "Well, he brought up that he did it in a way where it was like this. He goes, well, yeah, and I actually used to help out a guy named Chris Farley. Have you ever heard of Chris Farley, Tim?
Chris,
and I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Hold on. We've been talking for a half hour, and now you bring up the fact that you were Chris Farley's. He was Chris Farley's priest.
Wow.
He was the guy that Chris Farley would go to him to confess, and they were good friends. And so then I'm like, oh gosh. So, he had just passed away from drug addiction and overdose in his hotel room, like, let's say a few months ago. And the news conglomerates actually came to this priest's house and would interview him to talk with him about what he knew and all that too.
Wow.
But sitting there chatting with that guy because now I'm switched to Chris Farley, because Chris Farley, like, think about it.
Enough about your religion, dude. Let's talk about
Chris. He told me that Chris lived a very extroverted life, right, on camera, but in a way he was really more. I think what would happen with Chris, and I think that's what's happening in a lot of Hollywood's life, and this is something you could splice in maybe somewhere in the middle there, Todd, but. Chris would get on a high swing with being on SNL. And then after SNL, he wouldn't have anything, right? The show would be over. The adoration would be gone. He still gets it out in the public, but like the task of what he's doing. So what happens is he would spiral downward, right? And go into this just dark area where he'd be like, I don't know what my next thing's going to be, right? I'm not performing. I'm not on stage. I'm going to drink. I'm going to do drugs. I'm going to block out my brain. And then what would happen is he'd hit a roll and he'd get that drug, the drug of I'm being in a new movie. I'm put in the limelight again. I'm being adored for it, right? And so then all the chemicals come back, right? That's feeding his brain, that stuff. And I think that Chris Farley is a very big story for all of the famous people who are out there. That's what we're seeing, right? We see the real highs and lows. Oh, I'm not on stage, so I'm low.
Yeah.
Now I'm on stage, I'm high. And then I get off stage and now I don't know what's next. I'm low. High, low, And so but that's what I learned from the priest. But I just thought that was so interesting because he was there, with Chris Farley telling him things like, I'm just so low. I'm so low. And he'd be like, well, maybe you, it's just because you just came off of this movie that you did. And he'd try to help him out. And
wow.
Ultimately he just, wrote it as we all know how he wrote it. Rode that roller coaster of up and down to where it just killed him. But it's a very, very, cool thing for me to just have even run into that guy on a random note.
That's fascinating.
It was just so weird, but to hear his side of the story, how he explained it, it made me go, okay, so there really is a lot of that going on. And even for me, like I went on to do music and some improv, and I think that there were times where I could kind of feel like, okay, I'm feeling this way because I just did a show. I could use that what that guy told me about Chris. To go, okay, I'm just feeling this way because I'm coming down off the high.
Oh, for sure.
Being publicly adored.
And entertainment is such a different field of work to be in, man, because no matter what you do, I mean, let's say you're an electrician, whatever, and you always have work. You always kind of doing the same thing, and you can get better at it, and you do get better at it, and you become a master electrician. And but there's never this expectation for you to be more than what you are. You're an electrician. Obviously there's more to you. You're a human, you're a father, you're a husband, whatever. There's all these other things. But as far as a career goes, you're an electrician. But you start talking entertainment, it's very personal. It's very like, dude, you suck. We no longer want you. And that's devastating, man, because as humans, all we ever want is some type of appreciation, some acknowledgement, right? We want to be valued. And in that industry, in the entertainment industry,
there's value until there's not.
Until there's not. You're absolutely right, Tim. And the second there's not, your world caves in. Imagine you star in the biggest
we're seeing
movie.
it today.
We're seeing it today.
You said Adam Levine earlier, and I thought, boom, there's one guy who, I mean, I can't blame him, but he kind of effed up. He said something in his post that got out there, and now everybody's like, yeah, okay. At first, I thought maybe he's a cool guy, but no, he's pretty much like a pretty weird little dude. Like he's, he's fake. He kind of seems fake. Like he always did when he was on the voice anyway. But and I have always thought he's kind of like one of those guys where I just I don't know if I'd want to meet that guy. I'd probably be a jerk. But you can kind of sense that with some stars, don't you think?
Oh, for sure.
I bet that person's a total jerk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that might be a way to protect yourself.
What's that?
It might be a way to protect yourself. Being a jerk out in public is a way to protect yourself. I mean, I think we've all kind of, if there's someone you don't like or a client you don't like, you're really short. You're really short with them, and you just move on. And I don't care what they think. I don't care what they think about me because I really don't want you around.
But the thing is, the moment they do a post or something where they look creepy, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's all of this whole world comes tumbling down." The shows get lighter and lighter. The people don't come out anymore. Your songs aren't being heard on the radio anymore. And your value drops. Your value's dropping.
Your value drops. And here's the sad thing. Here's the sad thing about all of that too, right? Like all that starts to fade, like you're saying, Tim. And now you're sitting at home and you can't get a job, right? Like no one will hire you.
All you've ever known was being a rock star.
All you've ever known is being a rock star, being an actor, and now you can't get a gig, dude. And although you're at home and you might have this beautiful home and you might have a few $1 million sitting in the bank, maybe, and you've got this beautiful wife that adores you and these kids that adore you, that's not good enough. It's not good enough.
I miss the days when I could just
You miss the adoration. And here's what's mind-blowing, guys. Yeah. You miss the adoration of people you don't know don't truly give a fuck about you.
No.
And you don't care about them in the end, but you miss that. Not what you have in front of you. Not what you have in front of you. You want the adoration from people that don't fucking know you at all. But the people that are right in front of you saying, I'm here. I'm here. Are you okay?
Can you adore me?
You push them away.
Because they like you for the qualities you want them to like you for.
Exactly, Josh.
They don't see the imperfections.
Right.
Josh, oh my gosh.
Man,
what's
Josh.
up? Nice job, Josh.
Well, there's the episode. Come next week when we talk about aliens again. Boy.
I hear you.
There you go. You tied it up, though, Todd and Josh. I mean, really. It is something.
It's amazing.
Thing.
So in the end, okay, guys.
It's all created by human.
All of it is created by human. It's all in our minds. We've created all of it. We just need to uncreate it, right?
Yeah.
If somebody's out there being an actor or a musician, let them be who they are as a human. Let's admire them because we enjoy their craft the same way. I mean, we don't do that with an electrician. We don't do that with a plumber.
Hey,
we don't go.
Guys, I heard my electrician's here in the store.
Dude,
if you want to go over in aisle 7.
Guys, he wired the shit out of my new light.
And he only charged me $250.
$250. Dude, you guys want to meet him? I know him.
He's right over there.
You want to meet him?
Like later on, yeah. I want to meet him. I want to be able to tell my friends that I met.
Okay. Well, I know him, so I can introduce you. Well, it's no big deal.
You've got the power here. You've got the power. I just want to,
Yeah,
that is funny, right? Or even worse, our teachers, right? Our teachers are living in squalor. Right. They're the ones dealing with our children's education. And meanwhile, some YouTube stars out there getting $7 million a day per view and and they just sit there in front of their camera looking dumb all day.
Yeah.
And the teachers are like, what am I doing this for?
Because we value what we don't have. We value what is unattainable, and that's what we want. Right?
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. I mean, we admire. Now, don't get me wrong. We admire. Like again, if we start talking about the guy who works on your car, your mechanic, and he does a great job, and he's a great person, or she, and you admire them, and that's wonderful. I admire my father. We admire people, but man, when it comes to celebrities, oh my gosh.
I know we want to tear them apart. We want to live in their skin.
All. Oh, if I could just be you.
That's why we watch soap operas and why we watch reality TV shows.
I don't watch
They give us
soap
something.
operas.
Well,
I don't watch soap
why
operas.
people do and why they're so huge. I can't stand them either. I start vomiting inside my mouth.
Wow.
But when we like that, because I was sitting at a Firehouse Subs one day having my sub, meatball subs, just so you know.
Yeah, they're delicious.
And there's these two ladies behind me, and they were just going ham on this soap opera
you're
they're
having
watching.
Meatball.
They were going on ham.
They were having ham.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, they were going crazy about the soap opera, and they were talking about it as if they knew these people. Mm-hmm. And it just dawned on me. I mean, we all know this. That's why soap operas are big, because they offer you a sort of, they offer you drama that your life doesn't give you. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're at home, you're bored, and stay at home moms are the common the
at
common
least they
people
were
back in the
80s
day.
and 90s,
Yeah, back
sure.
in the day when they were like at their heyday. And it just made me realize, I mean, these, they want to be a part of these lives. It gives them a sense of value because they don't get that value in real life. And then you get into gaming. That is a whole other ballgame.
There's a whole other side to that too, Josh. In the 80s, there's the book or article I'm sure we could look up, and it does exist, and I think I'm basing it off what I'm about to say, but in the 80s, women were kind of in a way lied to, right? They weren't lied to. The people writing the stories were just writing their stories, but you have a ton of people in the world now who we already know buy into the movie, buy into the story way too much than they should. But look at what we had in the 80s. We had, the love story between the two teenagers, and what usually happens, right? It's like they get together and that's it. The end of the movie, everything's sunshine and roses, right? Mm-hmm. That was your average 80s movie. Just
He was a nerd. She was real hot and popular.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no way
this will work, but it does.
And oh no, but that now we're dealing with the aftermath of all these women and men who've watched it and bought into that narrative, right? And that didn't happen though the way, they didn't have the flash forward where they were famous and everything worked out. It's
and the happy ever after never happened.
Right.
Can you tell that to half my girlfriends I've had?
Yeah, what's their numbers?
Well, but this is the dose of truth we all need to realize. And I also kind of want to, make the challenge too. And this to me, I'm not, I really don't like it. And it happens all the time. And maybe you've heard this, right? You got your person that's famous. They're there. And what's the first thing they tell their audience that if there was like a question and answer, how did you get there? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what. It was, the answer is you can get there. I had a dream.
I had a dream.
Can get there.
And I worked hard.
Your heart. And I worked hard, and nobody, I hear you. And yes, that did happen for you. But unfortunately, the averages are not going to be, you won the lottery.
Yes.
You won the lottery.
You're right.
Did not. Because I had the same dreams, the same aspirations. I could have kept going with those aspirations. Things happened in my life that took those aspirations away. And it wasn't my plan, right? Mm-hmm. People died in my life. Things happened. Houses caught on fire. Stuff happened that I had no control of. And as much as I wished I could have been famous, I would have been a real jerk had I followed those inclinations. I needed to do what I needed to do and go take care of people I need to take care of. Right. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. So, and I even though I think, yes, maybe I could eventually get there there's a wake of dead bodies in that narrative, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure.
Like there's just a family that you just forget about. There's no wife, no kids. There's no,
yeah.
But I hate when people say that, because that is not everybody's story. It is your story. You won the lottery.
And what they're saying is, you're right. What they're saying is 100% true. You have a dream and you work your ass off to achieve it. But that's not the end of the story, like you're saying. There's a lot more that goes into it. I mean, Michelle and I there's a lot more. Michelle and I were in that boat one time too. I mean, Michelle and I hit a crossroad, and she looked at me and said, either you want me and a family, or you want to go be a rock star.
Yeah.
And I went and became a rock star. I'm just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're a rock star to me, Todd.
Thanks, buddy.
Honestly, if I had if I could rebuttal in that situation, I'd say, hey, you know what, people? Maybe there is something to just getting through this life, not being known by the masses. How about a life where we're just normal and we just take care of what we've been given? How about that? And we celebrate that.
That sounds fantastic.
That to me,
I think
at the end of the day, I'm going to die. Nobody will really know who I was. And that's kind of nice as well. Don't underestimate that is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. I think what happens though, Tim, what you're saying comes with years of maturity and experience. Right. We don't have that when we're young. And in the case of, Michelle and I hitting that crossroads, I really wanted to be a rock star. But at the same time, I loved her so much, I didn't want to lose her. Mm-hmm. So I gave up that dream in a sense. But what happened with giving up that dream is I was bitter about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for me to come to grips with giving up something like that, saying, well, that was my dream. Like I gave up on my dream. And, speaking earlier about, just being happy with what you have right in front of you, that comes from experience. And that's, I'm speaking from experience, that it took me a long time to realize that what I had right in front of me was more valuable than the adoration of anyone I didn't know. Yep. And once I wrapped my head around that, I started to find peace. I started to find peace.
And I cheer for that. I cheer for that peace. I cheer that's what we should be cheering for,
Right. But that's not what we're cheering for. We're cheering for, think about it. What's the best movie you've ever seen? Think about the storyline and think about what we applaud, right? This dude's married to this girl. He doesn't really care for her anymore. She might be sweet as hell. He doesn't care for her. This girl over here is about to get married to this dude, and he loves her to death. But she's just kind of like, whatever. But these two meet on an airplane, and they bang it out in the Mile High Club, and now they're in love. And so this movie ends with these two people cheating on their other friends or their other significant others and marry each other and come together. And we're all like, hell yes. Hell yes. You did it. You found love.
Especially on how they tell it. I mean, obviously that's
right. And that's the thing. And that's kind of where we're conditioned. We're conditioned. Well, think about the divorce rate today. Like it's so huge, right? And it's huge because, well, dude, if you don't like this, there's something better.
You didn't get the feels like the 80s movies.
And you know what? It's not your fault.
You didn't have that love experience.
It's not, and it's not you. It's them.
Yeah.
It's always them. So on your next marriage.
The lie of it.
On your next marriage, when that doesn't work out, guess whose fault it is that time? Theirs again. Mm-hmm. It's not you. You're perfect.
I'm just falling out of love. I don't know. I don't get the bubbly gigglies anymore when I see them. That kind of stuff.
So all that to be said, guys, look at what's right in front of you. And sometimes when you stop and you look at it, it's going to surprise you, and you're going to go, "Wow, I am the luckiest person in the world. Look at what I have."
Agree.
And for those
every day
I
look in the mirror. That's what I say.
That's what you see, Josh. I know. And for those of you out there that don't have that yet, be patient. It's out there. It'll come. Josh, and you can just look at me.
If you have won the lottery and you're still complaining, first of all, no.
Screw you.
Screw you.
No.
That's right.
I would say, there's something that is interesting. You got all these kids out here today that, they do want to be the YouTube stars. I think if you said to your average teenager, you go, "Hey, do you want to be a doctor?" And they're going to go, "No, I want to be a YouTube star."
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's something to be said too about the amount of effort. I mean, you did say like a lot of people who have made it will say, "I had a dream and I worked hard," and some of that is true too. Because what I'm seeing nowadays,
it's also luck. There's
it's
a
also
lot of luck.
There's a huge amount of luck that goes into it. You know, there's back in our day, now it's YouTube stars like you're talking about, Tim. But back in our day, it was you wanted to be a rock star.
Right, rock.
Those numbers
or movie.
Or actor,
or TV.
right. But those numbers were ridiculous. There was no way all of us were going to make it, right? So there was luck involved with it as well. But what I'm seeing these days with a lot of these young kids who want to do that kind of stuff, I want to be a YouTube star. Awesome.
I'm going to be the next Twitch,
right?
Streamer.
Awesome. What are you doing to achieve that? You know, you can't just make a video in your bedroom and then put it up on YouTube and go, shit, 5 people liked it, huh? And then you make another video.
You have to do some. And let's be honest, money makes money, right? You gotta invest. You gotta invest in algorithms here and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
You gotta invest in the Google putting you up on the first thing when you get searched, et cetera, right?
Yeah,
there's a little bit of that.
Yeah, and all that to be said.
But
I mean,
it's saturated.
Everything's saturated
now that everybody wants. Like, okay, I do think there was a time in the 70s, right? We'll go back to that rock star model where, you know, not a lot of people had guitars or were good at them, right? So yeah, you would get the story of like, you know, a band playing and there are these young kids and wow, they wrote a song that was pretty awesome.
And then somebody heard it and was like, whoa, what is that?
Somebody from Capitol Records just happened to be in the same building as them and they come up with the cigar and they go, your kids are signed, right? But that's when... You want to ride the gravy train with me? Yeah. But then what happens, right? Then we hit the 80s and it gets saturated. Saturated. Everybody wants to do it. Everybody's grabbing their guitar and everybody wants to be on MTV and everybody. So, yeah. So when we all want to do it, it's luck. Did you get struck by lightning? Yeah. Okay. You had the gumption and the passion and the whatever. But did you get struck by lightning? That's what I really want. And the lottery sense, right? Did you win the lottery? I mean, okay, you did. Great. Good job. But you can't go around promising kids they're going to win the lottery. You just can't, you know, anyway, I digress. But yeah, it's fame. It's getting older. It's getting a little wiser. And hopefully, I hope it kind of just sizzles out eventually where we're all just kind of fed up with it. Like, oh, you're famous? Oh, that's cheesy, right? I think that would actually be kind of cool to have that go to a place where it's like, oh, okay, you're famous. So what? Prove that you're a good human being, right?
Right. Yeah.
Who cares if you're famous? Like, are you nice? Are you, you know?
And that's another thing too, that like you said, I mean, that just, it happens with age, you know. I think when you start looking at people our age, you know, and we get to see somebody famous or meet somebody famous, it's not us losing our minds. It's whatever. Oh, hey, oh my gosh, there he is. That's cool.
Oh wow. Yeah, there's a guy that puts his pants on just like me, and just so happens to have a career where, you know, he gets filmed, and I don't.
But there'll always be a batch of young kids right behind us, right behind those, behind those that are going to be. I mean, like, here's a great example, dude. For my kids, it's really not about these movie stars anymore, or these. It is about some musicians, but it's not about these movie stars. It's about these YouTube guys.
YouTube stars.
My boys have gone to events to go meet YouTube stars.
YouTube stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal. You know?
I mean, even the concept of watching TV, right? You try to tell a kid that, no, this is happening right now, right? This thing being broadcast is happening. Like they're broadcasting it. And like that whole concept is kind of like, what to them, right?
So
it's foreign.
So this is live stream or?
Yeah, wait, what?
Well,
so
yeah, sort of.
I was filmed a couple of months ago, but you know, I mean, obviously, you get it, it clicks. But even the whole concept of the program and the TV program has changed to the web. Obviously, we all know that, and we're all products of the web. The web now has become the huge petri dish on humanity. We'll see where it leads us. It's going to be interesting. It's already been interesting, as we know. Oh yeah, because we're already learning too much about things, and we're like, I kind of wished I didn't know that.
Yeah. There are already PR and talent agencies for these TikTok stars and YouTube stars. Yeah. It's big business.
They all have money backing them. I mean, without a doubt. Yeah. And I think that's what you were getting at. You can't just be the kid. Oh, I'm going to go out there and make. These kids get disappointed when they make the video that just has 5 views because it's just showing it to their grandma, their brother, and his friends. But you're right. The ones that really do, like the kid who opens toys for a living, he's got a whole team of people that back that guy.
But the thing with that though too, and here's the thing you have to think about is with that, like that kid's a great example. There is something special about that kid. There's a whole bunch of stars that align for that kid to be successful.
Exactly.
He won the lottery. He won the lottery. There are so many things. And guys, I'm telling you, if you're out there and you're looking to try to figure out a way to make it and be famous, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but what I'm saying is it's not just about creating the thing. There are some awful things made, some horrible music, some horrible films that do very well and they become successful. It's not about that. It's all about the stars aligning, It's even down to the way that you might smile. It's down to the way that your hair is cut. It's down to the shirt on your back. It really is.
I have a face for radio, Todd. I mean, I tried to be the lead singer of a rock and roll band. But if you were to, you want the rock and roll band, you gotta kind of look like the hot dude, right? The long curly hair and you know what I mean? And I think in my 20s I was a little more easy on the eyes.
Tim, you're a very handsome man. I don't know what you're talking about.
All you people listening don't believe him when he's talking.
Well, what I'm saying is even for a little bit of that though, I felt and that's me judging myself obviously, but I always kind of felt, I'm not quite the sexual god that even my band wanted me to be, right? My band wanted me to be the guy who, came into the bar
with his stretchy pants
door.
on.
I got cocaine on my nose. And I'm just like, we're here. I got girls on. I got a harem. I didn't.
Hell yeah.
I was a nice guy. I walked around and I'd be like, hey, thanks for coming to this show. They called me Senator Nagle. Like I was a total I'd be like, hey, thanks for serving cocktails at the show today. Talking to the bartender.
Instead of hitting the cocktail in her face and being like, get out of my face.
Instead of going over my rider and how come I didn't have brown M&Ms.
Are there 7 ice cubes in this drink? 7?
I told you 7.
You know I don't do 7. Right.
I don't know. So the stars even, they didn't line up quite there for me. But the other side of it too, on a spiritual level for me, I mean, I remember being in a rehearsal with my band. And don't be freaked out by this, but basically a whisper of God's voice saying to me, hey, I'm not going to bless this, right, Tim? And I'd
Dang
be
it,
like,
God.
Like, shut up, Lord. But I have that background where I can, that scares some people, I'm sure. But for me, that was just my thing. In fact, God would tell me in my ear, and it wasn't loud. It was soft. It was, you're kind of Jonah to these guys. You're rocking the boat. It's not going to go anywhere, And I would ignore that for years. I'd be like, oh no, come on, it's got to go somewhere. We're all talented. We're writing great songs. We're getting more and more draw. But then it came down to circumstance and different things happening in my life. I
think that's truly what it all comes down to. Yeah, I mean, I think that is. Because you got to think about it, dude. Like, let's take the guys in Motley Crue for an example.
This is totally a great example.
I just watched that
Motley
movie.
Crue?
Yeah.
I just watched that.
God probably spoke to those dudes
They made
too.
it.
Yeah.
They made it. But now
God probably came to those guys and was like, listen, guys, this is too rotten. This is too nasty. We're not doing this. This is too motley. There's no way. And they were like, watch this, God. And they rocked out. And then Tommy Lee was spinning in some drums.
Yeah, sure. But I will say they're a great arc of how something can be so celebrated to like literally 5 years later, they're barely selling out shows.
Oh yeah.
They're not even making ends meet on that. And if you watch the show Pam and Tommy, which is a terrific show, which isn't he doing OnlyFans now? But that's a whole other episode we need to talk about. That
Tommy Lee, I feel like, is probably the most successful out of all of them.
Yes, he is.
I could be wrong.
But that Pam and Tommy show, there's a scene where their record label was like, all right, let's get you in the studio for another album, and it's late 90s at this point.
Grunge is already hit.
Listening to, you know what I mean?
No hair metal bands.
There's a scene where they walk into the studio that they normally record in, the A studio, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who's there? But I think like 3 doors down, right? That's the band.
Yeah.
And they're like, but no, we've got Studio A booked. And this just enrages Tommy Lee.
Right.
He's so pissed about it. And I'm loving it because this is it. It's like Billy Joel, right? Where he's like, you're the piano man and just wait, I'll be gone in a few years and you'll be thinking of the next guy, right?
Yeah.
That's a paraphrase, but you know what I mean? Like, just always the entertainer. I'm sorry, I said the piano man. I am the entertainer. You know just who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another serenader, another long-haired band. Today I'm your champion. I'm gonna go all around the world. But then Billy Joel in his prediction of his own life, although he was kind of wrong, he still sells out the arenas. But even still, like just the whole notion of somebody is going to come along, they're going to do it better than you. And you're going to have to really work hard to be back in the limelight again. It's just funny. But Motley Crue, man, I just love that scene where they had to deal with being pushed to the C-suite or whatever. And it just ruined them.
Going full circle here. When that happens to you, it's devastating. And if you don't have a solid foundation in family, in friends, in belief, whatever it is that you could have a solid foundation in, and not these material things and not these wants,
fleeting,
desires. If you don't have that, I mean, it's going to be devastating. I mean, there's plenty of stories too, where somebody falls from the stardom and they are good.
You had to find grounding.
You do. And
that is true. I think that's what I want to hear more of. Like I even think of like a Cameron Diaz, right? She used to be in the 90s film, 90s,
huge star.
Now we don't really see much of her.
Here's the difference with the Cameron. Here's the difference with the Cameron Diaz, and I think a lot of those stories that are similar to hers is they've made the decision to walk away.
Yeah, they go
in the making of the decision to walk away. It's on your terms, and that's quite different than the terms being set for you by the industry.
Thing is, she's still going to be noticed by everybody.
Oh my gosh,
out on the street. It's still going to be a pain in the butt, and they'll all go, "Why are you doing movies?" Right?
But that has to wane over time, because think about it. Like, if my kids coming up aren't familiar with a Cameron Diaz because they haven't seen her in anything, right? They're not going to be hounding her. It's going to be us that's going to hound her, but we're getting older with her.
The nerdy guys from the 90s.
Oh my gosh. What's in your hair?
You were in the mask. Anyway, this is awesome. I love this impromptu conversation we had here.
Yeah, this is fun, man.
This is a good episode.
I like this
Absolutely.
Definitely I'm sure on everybody's minds. I'm sure that people listening to this, they're going to be like, I've got something to say.
Oh, for sure.
We all do. We all have like our own expert opinion on something.
Absolutely.
Topic. I mean, it's absolutely gotten out of control.
We see it over and over again, and it's heartbreaking. Like what just happened with Aaron Carter. Like we had mentioned earlier, it's heartbreaking to see a young life, any life, go away. And you can't help but to think that if it weren't for the fame and what comes along with that, the excess partying, the drug use, the pressure, stress, all of that comes along with it, that
nobody sees.
Nobody
sees. All.
And maybe he'd still be around. It's tough to say. It really is. But, I think you can look at some of these cases and go, man, if it weren't for that.
What would he have been like if he'd just grown up in a normal house?
Yeah. What if his brother was never Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys?
Yeah. We have to be able to let go and move on. And if it means being a great celebrity and that in the day you're working in the factory, that's fine. And that should be celebrated. You should be celebrated by wanting to change and wanting to do something different with your life and maybe live a simple life. And
oh, for sure.
You should never be judged based on how you want to switch things up.
Unfortunately, here's what happens, Josh. You're surfing along the web, and then all of a sudden you see this like cheesy clickbait, and it's like, where is such and such today? Look what happened to them. They gave up fame and fortune, and now look where they are.
Now they're an accountant.
Like, I can't wait to find out. Where are they? Are they,
But you're right. But even that picture that's painted of these people it's painted in a bad light. They've walked away from Hollywood, and now they're a financial advisor, happy with 3 children, living in Omaha. And you're like, oh, that sucks.
What were they thinking? But yeah. so crazy. We live in a weird system. We live in a weird system that was made, and we're living in it now. We've made our bed, we're lying in it, and it is weird. It is a topsy-turvy, crazy roller coaster ride. But it's fun too if you know how to do it right. You just got to keep it cool. Maybe notoriety is okay from time to time, but keeping yourself under the radar is not so bad too. There's a lot of happiness there.
I would agree. Yep. And like we said before, man, look at what's in front of you. Look at what's in front of you and around you.
Care
and you
about
know
the people around you.
This even goes beyond celebrity. You know, if you're out there struggling and you feel like no one gets you and you're alone and you're not succeeding in whatever it is you want to succeed, remember who's around you. Remember who loves you. Remember who has your back, because it's not that job. It's not that employer. It's not those fans. It's your family. It's your friends. And always lean on them. Always lean on them.
That's right.
All right, guys. I love you so much. So good talking to you again.
Todd, Josh.
guys.
I love you. I just love you. Love you. No, this was fun. Good times.
Real good times. Well, guys, ciao.
Ciao. Everybody have a terrific week.
Have a great week, everybody.
Be glad you're not famous.
Fame sucks.
Fame is not what it's cracked up to be. Be glad you're nobody like us.
Be sure to subscribe to the Created by Human podcast. Leave us a review. Follow us on our socials @Created by Human. Head over to createdbyhuman.com for additional information. Sign up on our mailing list and check out our Created by Human swag. Does it just sound like gibberish? We'll be back next week with an all-new story that is sure to make you question, is it true or was it?